We're back with another Letterboxd highlights. In case you didn't already know, this series is where I recap the best and most interesting films I've watched from the previous month. This time, we're taking a look at March of 2019. This film is tropey. It takes some definite creative liberties with the story and misses out quite a few key points of Paige's story in WWE. However, it hits a soft spot with me because I am a massive wrestling fan, even if my relationship with WWE has been patchy over the years, more often than not these days. There's some great performances, comedy, and it's visually interesting places. So yeah, it's not a groundbreaking film, but if you enjoy wrestling or somewhat interested in a story about, I guess, the behind the scenes of wrestling, definitely check it out. This is a wonderfully crafted film. It's visually stunning, even if the more natural colour grade isn't exactly my cup of tea, but I appreciate it nonetheless. The score is magnificent. Daniel Day-Lewis as Daniel Plainwater is a performance for the ages, one of the best I've ever seen. And I'd be remiss not to mention Paul Dano as Paul and Eli Sunday, especially as Eli Sunday. He plays off Daniel perfectly, and that final scene is an absolute pleasure to watch. One of the best acted films I think I've ever seen. As a film fan, I think it's seen as a requirement to think Citizen Kane is one of the best films of all time. And up until last month, I hadn't actually seen it, so there I am outing myself as a fraud. However, I fell in love with this film because I think it's the perfect intersection between modern and classical filmmaking. It uses more classic techniques such as blocking conversations to perfectly fit one continuous shot. Some may argue this is more reminiscent of a stage show than a film, but a lot of more classical films are like that because of the knowledge that went into making them. The way it plays with light and shadows is wonderful. It doesn't need colour to be a gorgeous film. And then it employs, I guess, more modern filmmaking techniques. The narrative is non-linear. It employs a lot of montage and fast editing, and that is glorious. I've seen people call Citizen Kane boring, but it wasn't for me. We're kind of drawn in with this mystery about what Rosebud means, but we're kept around by a tale of a very intriguing man. And you could easily argue that fucking Charles Kane is a morally great character, which was a rarity, I want to say especially during the 40s. There's not a single element of this film I dislike. The performances are great. Orson Welles as both the director and lead character at this age is something that should be immensely respected. The cinematography is gorgeous and it has great writing. Is it the best film that's ever made? That's something that could be debated to the end of time. What I will say though, it is definitely one of the best films I've ever watched. This is more of an honourable mention because I didn't exactly love this, but I do have a great respect for what Jordan Peele is doing with his films, both of which are horror and both of which tackle social political issues, which is what the genre has always done at its best. This is helped immensely by how stunning the film is and some great double performances, which is a point you will understand once you've watched this film. I'm thinking I may have to watch this again at a later point, because I'm toying with this idea that the reason I didn't enjoy it as much as I should is because of the audience I watched it with. See, I went to see it the day it came out, and in a massive cinema that was packed, and a lot of the audience seemed to think a good portion of the film was comedic. Now, don't get me wrong, there is some definite comedy throughout, and it's great, especially from the dad, but they seem to find more of it funny than I think was meant to be. And I'm not sure whether that's the audience's fault or the filmmaker's fault, but I guess I will find out, and if I enjoy it more in the future, I will be sure to update this. And that is it for the highlights of March 2019. I watched about 12, 13 films, and I was feeling impressed with most of them, which is a bit disappointing because obviously I try my best to promote the stuff I enjoy most, which is why there's only 4 entries, well, 3 actual entries and 1 honorable mention in this video. Sometimes you just don't enjoy them, and they can be down to a bunch of different factors, but last month I only enjoyed 3 or 4 films, enough to share them with you. hopefully April will be a better month for film watching. Well, it should be, because Endgame is coming out, and that's going to be like 3 hours of Marvel. Oh boy. But yeah, that is all for March of 2019. Onwards to April. Love film.